Welcome to the Overdrive Outdoors podcast.
Your source for everything outdoors.
Let's kick it into overdrive.
Overdrive Outdoors podcast brought to you by Predator Hunter Outdoors. Whether you are new to predator hunting or looking to upgrade your equipment, Predator Hunter Outdoors will have you hunting after the sun goes down. Carrying a full line of lights, night vision, and thermal optics, along with tripods, calls, mounting systems, and more, check them out at www.predatorhunteroutdoors.com or on Facebook at Predator Hunter Outdoors. Use promo code OVERDRIVE2021 for 20% off your order.
All right, everybody. So tonight we're here with Steve Thomas, his first time on the Overdrive podcast, and we have our very first guest from outside of the Overdrive world, Mr. Teddy Pace. Teddy, how you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be here talking with you fellas.
Steve, what are you up to?
Not much. Ready to talk some deer hunting.
Yeah, that's kind of going to be where we're at during this podcast. It's going to be a deer hunting podcast, early season podcast. But first, I've been doing a lot of fishing lately. The fishing has been pretty good around here. We've been catching a lot of panfish. Me and mostly Carter's been wanting to go out fishing with me, my oldest boy. Teddy, you've been doing some fishing too, haven't you?
Yeah, we got a couple little small ponds around here that I take the kids to. Good bluegill action. Not keepable numbers, but it's just great for the kids to get to catching. I got a little canoe that we take over there sometimes with one or two of them in it, and, we have fun.
See, and that's where we go fishing, and I tell the boys, too, if you don't put 10 in that basket, I'm not keeping them. Right. I'm not playing 6 of the things to have a snack at lunchtime,
Right. Well, I'm lucky. I got the St. Clair River right here, and the walleye fishing's phenomenal. So one of my best friends, we've used to fish a lot. He still does fish a lot, and whenever I want to go get some fish, I can usually call him and go out and catch a limit. Usually any night we want to, as long as the wind ain't blowing wrong.
Right.
So I've been pretty spoiled.
Yeah, it's just I like going out. When I go fishing, I like to bass fish and I like to walleye fish because I like fighting those bigger fish. But the kids, they don't have the patience for that. They don't have the patience for flipping a freaking Cinco around, and waiting for it to sink and hoping for a hit. So I picked up a cheap little ultralight rod, and I've been throwing a 1/16 ounce jig with a piece of night crawler on there and just catching, slab bluegill on that ultralight with the drag set real low. And as soon as one of them little 6-ounce fish hits it, and it's fun doing that,
That's why I like my Eagle Claw feather light.
Right.
A good sized bluegill will give you a run for your money on that rod.
I enjoyed doing that for the first time ever, probably this year. Because when we used to go up to the cottage, we used to go sit on the pontoon and catch perch, but they were, 6-7 inch little tiny perch, and that was boring to me. But now that I picked up an ultralight with some, I think, 4-pound test on there with a low set drag, I've been having a good time doing that. So I think that's what we're going to go do tomorrow morning too, if we're not calling for rain. I haven't actually looked at the weather yet.
I think tomorrow's supposed to be pretty nice, actually.
I just hope it's cool.
Nah, I think you're gonna be like.
I don't know that my body can handle any more sunburn.
I think you're gonna hit mid-80s by the middle of the day.
Oh, fantastic!
Because we were gonna go tubing tomorrow, but now I'm not.
Ugh.
I'm just gonna smoke a whole bunch of meat.
Oh, that works too. So, Steve, this is your first time on the podcast. Yep. Why don't you tell everybody where you're from, kind of what you do? I mean, you've been part of Overdrive for 4 years, I think now, maybe 5.
2016.
Yeah, 5 years.
So 5 years, yeah.
And you've done a lot of coyote hunting with us, but you're also a big deer hunter. So
yeah, I've been with Overdrive 5 years now. I live in northern Allegan County, not too far from Josh here, but do a lot of coyote hunting. Haven't recently. A lot of deer hunting and I really like my running beagles on rabbits in the wintertime and get my kids out squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting. We have a lot of fun with that. Doing some ice fishing and steelheading.
Ice fishing, I just couldn't talk myself into it after the first time this year.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to get that right day and you'll get hooked again.
Hold your mouth right or whatever they say. Teddy, do you do any ice fishing?
I grew up on Lake St. Clair, so I used to hit it hard. I actually haven't done it in a few years, but this past year with Corona and everything, having the time, I picked up a shanty and made a couple perch runs down on Lake St. Clair and caught a couple nice messes of them.
Nice.
So yeah, it's hit or miss. Like if you get on them good when they're there, it can be a blast, or it could be 6 hours staring down a hole and then with the sore back and a stiff neck, you know.
Yeah,
absolutely. How many kids you got, Teddy?
3.
Do you take them when you're out on the ice?
I haven't yet, because I bought this little tiny shanty, just getting back into it. But end game is I'm going to get a big shanty and start taking them too.
See, and that I posted about this on the Overdrive Facebook page last week. If you have kids and you want to take them to do the stuff like ice fishing or public land run and gun hunting these bucks,
yeah,
how do you do it with a kid that wants to do it but doesn't have the patience to do it? That's a very big struggle.
It would be with the way you take your kids to learn anything. You got to expect that there's going to be flaws and you're not going to succeed, but you're doing it for the experience and for them to learn. And eventually, maybe they will get a love for it, but we also can't force them at the same time because then they probably won't enjoy it in the long run.
Yeah.
But giving them that option with, no expectations of actually shooting that big buck, but we're going to go out and act like we're going to
try
and try,
See, yeah, I agree with that 100%. You got to start slow going through the motions and let them get that itch. I mean, plan short trips. They're going to end quick when they, what I'm saying? With my kid, I take my kids all hunting. My youngest, what I'm saying? She'll be 6 in November. And I took her last year, opening weekend of bow. I took her out back with the crossbow. I got her shooting the crossbow really good. And, she was pulling a grouping at 20 yards. So my fiance was out of town. So I took her out hunting opening weekend last year with me. You know what I'm saying? She sat tight and almost got a shot off at a buck, but her little rubber boots squeaked on the chair and spooked him.
It's always this little thing.
Yeah. But she was happy as heck that she got to see a deer and was able to tell her brother and sister that she almost got a shot at a buck, and, my son got a good turkey last year. He's missed a nice 6-point this year. He missed a big doe this year. My daughter's missed a couple turkeys. But
I've been known for missing a couple things before. I'm not going to mention my own name, but I'm right here.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a couple misses under my belt too, bro. But mine just aren't as public as yours, I'll say. It's well known. But, with the kids, though, man, you just got to start them small and keep some, a tablet to keep them occupied, take them at the best hours, the best times.
Yeah.
See, and I'll stop you right there because that I have a personal problem with that myself. Giving my kids something like a Game Boy or a tablet or something. I feel like if that's what you want to do, and maybe I'm a bad guy for it, but stay home.
Right.
Well, I'm kind of on the fence about that same thing. The first year I took Hunter out, I wouldn't give him anything, and his patience was very low. And the second year, I would give him my phone, and he'd play like a dirt bike game, and I'd let him do it for like 10, 15 minutes, and I'd take it back, and then he'd have to wait a little bit. But, that first year he practiced really hard. He wanted to go hunting, shooting that crossbow like crazy, and he became a really good shot. And at 6 years old, first morning, he killed his first deer. But we were in the blind for maybe 2 hours, and he was ready to go after an hour.
Right.
Dad, can we go? Dad, when are the deer going to be here? Because he had helped hang cameras all summer and leading up to it. And the last couple of weeks, we had a good group of does coming through like right after daylight every day. So he, expected right after daylight a deer was going to come through. And that morning we're out there, they didn't. Dad, when are the deer going to be here? Dad, when are they going to come? I don't know, buddy. They might not come. And, it was maybe an hour and a half into it. And he's like, Dad, can we just go? I'm like, let's give it a little bit longer, bud, a little bit longer. And it wasn't 20 minutes later, and I could hear him coming from behind us. And boy, he did a 180, just perked right up, started breathing a little heavy, and let doe come around the corner of that blind, and
see, and
took it.
I feel like that's part of the hardest thing is that it's hard to keep kids involved or enthusiastic about it when there's been nothing. For so long.
It is.
Well, we've gotten accustomed to the point of you might sit for 5, 6, 7 hours in a tree before the big one finally walks by himself, and it's the first animal you see.
You might sit from sun up to sundown and not see anything.
You will a lot of times.
But what I do is, if it's a morning hunt, they don't get to touch the tablet until it's well after, you know what I'm saying, daylight, and we're in there and prime time's over. And it's going to get to be the boring time where we're sitting there and trudging it out and hoping one might come walk through. And the same thing with evening hunts. They get it from, if we're out in the blind at 2 o'clock and it ain't dark till 6, they get the tablet for an hour or two, and then it's like, all right, it's showtime, man. One could pop out anytime, put the tablet away, let's buckle down and get ready, and they know after, once they see one coming at the evening, they know it's getting dark, Dad, we might see one. I got to start looking, Right. So I mean, that's the way I've done it, because you can't expect, I've been taking my kids since they were 4. You've been taking your kids since they were super young as well, and all of mine started going at about 4, you know what I'm saying? And you can't expect a 4 or 5-year-old to sit there for 3 or 4 hours and stay entertained. If I can keep them distracted for 2 hours and then that last hour they're in the zone, we're winning. You know what I'm saying?
And I get that. I just feel like at this point there's so much distraction anymore from real life, what's going on around you. And I personally hate it, but I know I'm bad at it just the same, because there ain't no way I'd sit in that tree all day long from sun up to sundown without seeing a deer, without scanning through Facebook.
Exactly.
Saying, well, Teddy Pace just shot one. What the heck?
When we were younger, we didn't have that. There was no smartphone or tablet or anything. We had
to tough it out.
We had to tough it out when we were.
And it was tough.
And it was tough. It's different times at the same time, but. No, that's how I kind of started that first year. I wanted Hunter. I didn't want that. I wanted him to enjoy it, but I've seen him starting to lose that want a little bit. So,
which is hard.
This ain't the world that we grew up in, fellas, and we got to make the adjustments. And if I got to sacrifice a couple hours of tablet time so that I can light that fire in these kids, you know what I'm saying? My son shot his first turkey last year, and your kids have had some harvests. Yeah. You know what it's like when they get it done. You know what I'm saying? It something clicks. We got to do what we got to do to get them there, to keep this thing going. That's the way I look at it.
Yep. I agree. Well, Teddy, how about you growing up? Did you always come from a hunting family, or are you kind of your own? I found my own way.
No, my dad was the old hillbilly from Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? He hunted a lot, didn't kill a lot.
That's my dad. He wasn't a hillbilly from Kentucky, but he hunted a lot and didn't kill a lot.
My grandpa's from Kentucky.
Yeah, my dad hunted 25 some years and killed 1 buck, and it's a little 8-point, little basket rack 8-point that I got. I just had it remounted a couple years ago with one of my capes.
Okay.
But I had 2 older brothers too, so he always had a kid with him. He drugged me along from the time I was 5 years old, I was going, you know what I'm saying, and falling asleep at the base of the tree and waking up, you know what I'm saying, in the rain, soaking wet, whatever, but always trudging along, So, but we had a camper that we went to. I grew up in Warren, so I was in the city, you know what I'm saying? I was right on the border of Detroit. But every weekend we had a camper over in Howell that we went to, and, there was a little pond that we fished, or a little lake that we fished in, and we bluegilled and bass fished, and, squirrel hunted and deer hunted. So I was always chasing my dad and my older brothers around playing catch up. I'm the youngest of 5. So I had 2 older brothers that I was trying to chase around,
So back then, when your dad and your brothers and you would go deer hunting, what was your main hunting style back at that point? I mean, were you a bait hunters? Were you guys
No,
playing a ladder stand and sit there all year?
it wasn't even tree stands. We had, this is early 90s, we were 2x4s and plywood building, I remember I built my first tree stand when I was 12 out of a couple 2x4s and a piece of plywood, and I had an old dart and bow, and I didn't even know about clearing shooting lanes. I had 2 yearlings come out and dumped my whole quiver on them. And my dad and brother were up the hill watching, and my arrows were actually deflecting over the deer and shooting into the next field over, because I was hitting branches that I didn't trim shooting lanes, because we didn't know nothing about that. My dad was just hunt a run, find a run, and sit tight.
And that's kind of old woodsmanship style hunting,
Yeah, absolutely. Look
So-
for sign and hunt it.
Do you recall your first time actually being out deer hunting?
I remember, I don't know about the first time, but I can remember being real young and, like I said, falling asleep at the base of a tree. I woke up and it was pouring rain, and I was face down, like sleeping in the grass, and I woke up, my whole back was all wet. You know what I'm saying? My dad's sitting there soaking wet in the rain. He smoked a pipe and drank coffee. And he said, "Did you have a good nap, boy?" And I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I don't know why I remember it, but, it was just like, he just sat through the rain, was like, "Yeah, we're hunting. Did you have a good nap? All right, well, watch for some deer now."
Memorable things.
Yeah.
What about your first successful hunt that you were a part of? Whether you were whether you were the hunter or you were with somebody that was successful.
Well, I know that when I was about 7, my dad shot his buck and he brought it home, and I'll never forget that. Like, I knew he had a little Plymouth Horizon, little tiny car, and he shot a buck and a doe at the same time. He shot the doe and it dropped, and then the buck was standing there and he wasn't sure what, so he shot again and walked over, and a buck and doe laying there. And he actually had to cut the legs off to get in this little Horizon or Omni, whatever. And I remember when he brought it home, he didn't even gut him or nothing. He just got him into the car, got him home. And him and both, I will never forget. We drug these deer into the garage, and it was the first time I had seen a buck. And I knew then, dude. I was just like, "Oh man, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna chase these deer. Like, I'm gonna kill bucks, man."
Familiar.
And I knew then.
And my dad, man, I couldn't even tell you. My dad hunted my whole life. And I think the first deer he ever brought home, I was probably 10, 11. He wasn't a good deer hunter. He was just a deer hunter. But he had some good private property to hunt, and he always had seen deer and shot at deer. But I guess the Mapes name kind of rings true all down the line. It's
generational, huh?
I was just gonna say that.
Yep, and he brought home that first deer, I think probably when I was between 10 and 12, and it was the same thing. We had waited for him to come home with a deer for every year. He would go for opening day of gun season, opening week or whatever of gun season here in Michigan, and it was a long time before we actually got to see what one looked like up close. But that was kind of the same. It's like, yep, I'm gonna be a deer hunter when I get older.
Yeah.
What would you now consider your hunting style? Because you hunt both public and private. So between public and private, do you have completely different hunting styles between the two? I mean, how would you go out and tackle a piece of public versus how you'd go out and tackle a piece of private?
Well, both of them, I'm worried about other hunters is my main concern. You know what I'm saying? State land even more so. You know what I'm saying? I'm hunting them too because I want to stay away from them, or I'm going to want them to push the deer to me, whereas you can be a little more on the private land. I got lucky with when I bought my house on 10 acres, I ended up getting access to the 80 acres behind me. It's a huge crop field and 30 acres 2 doors down. So I bought 10 acres. Yeah, I bought 10 acres and got 120 adjoining with it,
Terrible.
Yeah,
I
right?
bought 3/4 and I've got 3/4.
So I'm a little more patient here. You know what I'm saying? Because I know what the pressure is here, a little more calculated. But I mean, state land is scout, 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 get away from the people, hunt the freshest sign. You know, I mean, I've killed a lot of deer on state land. You know,
Yep.
a lot of deer. That's where I, cut my teeth. You know what I'm saying? I killed a lot of deer. I hunted with a buddy up in Kalkaska. I shot my first deer up there when I was about 16 with a bow, over bait piles. This was back when baiting was legal. And,
Yep.
we used to load them up. We'd get truckloads of beets and carrots every weekend when we would be up there and, load up bait piles. And, I cut my teeth killing deer like that.
That's how I remember it too.
Me too. We used to do the same thing in Cadillac.
I went from my
12.
family not killing nothing to going up to my buddy's cabin and everybody's killing deer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Eventually I just got way more selective, and now I'm looking for, a lot of the run and gun stuff. You know what I'm saying? Josh, we got a lot of the same style. We talk quite a bit, you know what I'm saying, on how we scout and how we attack pieces and stuff. And, I'm looking transitions and pressure. I'm looking for untouched ground that nobody's got to. And if that means I got to walk a little further, then, so be it.
Yeah. And I won't ever say that there's not a lot of people in Michigan, because I feel like there are a lot of hunters in Michigan, but there are still those spots where people just drive by them and say, oh, there's a piece of public land. And that's it.
Yeah.
We're looking very easily.
Yep. There's a lot of small spots. We've got a couple that are there's a 35 acre or something not too far from here, that
just a little
very small piece. And those are the kind of pieces that I kind of like to look for on public, are those small spots that you can't run forever, because I feel like people don't like the thought of having to go knock on a door to get permission to track a deer.
Yeah.
And you know which spot I'm talking about. It's over towards where you deer hunt. There's only one vehicle that I've really ever seen in that parking lot, and that opens up however many acres. But so you run and gun hunt public. What is your run and gun setup?
Well, I have a Summit Climber that I've had, honestly, since the late 90s. I can't tell you how many deer I've killed out of the thing.
Yep.
I also have, some Lone Wolf sticks, and I bought a couple Hawk stands last year that I toyed around with, and I had a small big game stand that was only like 12 or 14 pounds that I had 2 years ago that I ran with the Lone Wolf sticks. So I've just been tweaking. I was talking to you earlier. I just ordered that new Novik stand. So I'll be running that. I got some Lone Wolves that I cut down and put API double steps on.
See, and that's what I got to do. I got to put a double step on mine.
Yeah, I had bought one from Eastern Outdoors, and then I seen the API sticks are the same as the Lone Wolves, but they're like $100 for a set of 3 sticks, and they come with double steps. So I took all my Lone Wolf parts and put them on them, and took the double steps and put them on my Lone Wolves and cut them down to 20 inches, 20 or 24 inches. I don't remember.
I think stock Lone Wolves come at 32. And then I cut off, I think, 12 of mine to get a 20-inch step. Yeah. But I'm running single steps on mine.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's about the same setup, but I have like I said, I have the double steps on it. And then I got cable aiders on the bottom, 1 or 2.
Okay.
But like I said, I just ordered that new stand, so I'm going to be playing with that, because I got that Hawk Ultralight combo last year that Midway had.
Yep.
It came with the sticks and that little tiny stand.
Yep.
And the stand's not bad. I modded everything. So I got a Lone Wolf bracket and put it on there, and, the Batwing bracket.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I hooked that up. And I mean, it's a solid stand, but it's not the cast aluminum. It's got the welds on it. There's a lot that can go wrong, and there's better options out there. I bought it trying to save a couple bucks, and I had one of the Hawk sticks kick out on me when I was climbing down, and I about threw them out that night. I didn't climb with them again,
I've heard some things like that before about those sticks, but I got 4 set of Hawk sticks, and I haven't had an issue yet. I actually love my Hawk sticks. They're a little heavy, but
yeah, I ran Hawk sticks for the first season that I had that I was doing run and gun back in 16 or 17. I ran 4 hawk sticks, and I didn't have a problem. I rope modded them to get rid of that steel or whatever metal buckle that they got that goes around the
that
tree.
isn't so cool, but
see, yours is modded.
Yeah.
Your straps are modded with like a beer can koozie or something almost.
Oh, that's it's almost like the silent tape.
Yep.
Whatever you want to call it, is put around those buckles so they don't clink and make noise. But
yep.
They work.
And what do you use for stand?
I got the Lone Wolf Assault 2.
Okay. So same stand I use. I use 4 modded. I mean, basically just cut down Lone Wolf sticks. They are.
But you're running rope mods too, right?
I'm using Amsteel daisy chains on mine. I built some daisy chains on them, and I'm not completely sold on them because it doesn't. I have had, and I think it's probably because of me cutting them down and maybe not putting the buckle or the strap exactly in the right location. Right. But I have had a couple where the bottom's kicked out when I've gone to just lock them down with my hands. But other than that, Lone Wolves with daisy chains, I'm up a tree in 7 minutes with my bow in my hand. Have you ever timed yourself?
I have not timed myself. I know at the end of the season, I'm a lot faster than I am at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
I got this set up not last year, but towards the end of the year before.
Yep.
So it was actually the end of bow season, November, and my first night out, I killed that big doe, and you helped me drag her out.
Well, why don't you tell us about that doe? Because this is your first run and gun.
It was my very first run and gun.
That especially a successful one.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that hunt.
So I guess we should start with, I was interested in getting into run and gun, watching you and looking at your setup, and I really liked your stand and your sticks. And so I'd borrowed yours for a set earlier in the year, and I really liked the mobility of it. So I found somebody selling a brand new stand close to me, and I picked that up, and I ordered the sticks, and I was waiting for the sticks to come in, and they finally came in, and it was November 14. I got home.
I remember that.
I got everything set up, and I'm like, all right, I'm running to the woods. I'm gonna get this figured out. I'm gonna hunt out of my stand tonight. And I had a plan on going in deep towards the swamp edge where I knew where some deer were hanging out. And by the time I actually got everything set up and got to the woods and got out there, it was running pretty late. And I knew of a closer spot, pretty close to the road. I mean, what are we, like 200 yards from the road? Another little wet area. And I was like, you know what, this will do. I just want to set it up. Even if I don't see a deer tonight, this will be okay. I'll set up in my stand.
We had snow on the ground, didn't we?
We had a lot of snow.
Yep.
It was like not quite knee deep, but it was like shin deep snow.
Yeah. So you could run off of sign though.
Yeah, and there was sign all over in the area I was going into. So I picked this closer area to just go set up so I could at least sit in the stand for some time before dark. And I got in there, and there was quite a bit of sign. That it's like an intersection of 3 different runs coming out of this wet area. One taking like a saddle, one taking a ridge top, and one kind of cruising around the outside of it. And I picked a nice tree kind of close to the intersection of all 3 of them, climbed up, and I probably wasn't in that stand 20 minutes. And a couple of deer come running by me from the thick, and I stood up and grabbed my bow, and I looked back, and I see it was a big bodied deer coming through. I couldn't see its head at first. I'm like, buck. He's chasing these does that just come out of there. And this giant doe steps out and is at 20 yards broadside. And I'm like, just kind of looking at her in awe about how big she was at first. I'm like, I'm shooting her, you know? So I ended up shooting her, and I called Josh. And if that thing didn't go 400 yards into the swamp, it didn't go 10 feet.
Bleeding like a stuck pig.
Dude, bad. I'm pretty sure both of us still have videos saved of this deer, of just the blood spray up trunks of trees coming in, and we had to cross the creek like 3 different times. And
I'm trying to remember where your arrow was.
My arrow
We found your
went
arrow
in behind her ribs and actually came out on the top of her neck.
Yep.
Like in between her head and her shoulders. Like it went all the way through, and I think it only caught one lung, and the way it skirted through, it came out the top of her neck on the exit side.
I remember that.
And yeah,
because every 20 yards we're like shining the flashlight in front of us, like she should be right. Nope,
Gotta be laying here.
How can one deer lose this much blood?
that was a good night. We were out there for a long time.
We were, and then we only brought the hawk cart to the first creek crossing,
which was 300 yards from where we got her at.
Oh man, but that's probably the biggest bodied deer I've killed.
Yeah, and that was a big
she's bigger than
doe.
Yeah, she's bigger than almost any buck I've ever killed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe my 9-point body buck might have been a little bit bigger than her. But
want to lengthen your time in the field and shorten your scouting time? Not only does the HuntWise app show you property boundaries, landowners' names, and in some cases even their phone number, but using the app will show you the wind direction on the map of the place you want to hunt. And the HuntCast feature shows peak movement times for various species, including predators. Get the HuntWise app at www.huntwise.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store for only $59.99 a year for Pro or $119.99 a year for Elite. Use promo code OVERDRIVE20 for 20% off an annual membership.
So, Teddy, if you're out looking on public land, let's say you're just looking at a map. You're not looking at topo, anything like that. You're just looking at a satellite image. What is one of the main things, if you were to see one thing on a map that said, I need to go check that out, what do you think that would be?
There's a lot of different things. I mean, it just depends on the terrain. I'm looking for isolated transitions and areas that'll hold deer that nobody's going to get to. I mean, it's so you hear it so much, especially with the run and gun stuff, but you got to get to where people aren't going to be. A lot of times, my one spot in state land, it was a simple little clearing. There's railroad tracks that run through it, and there's a big, I guess you would call it a swampy pond, and then it butted up to cattails, but there's like a little land bridge that crossed the tracks, and if you didn't cross there on that little land bridge, then you'd have to go down, I don't know, a half a mile through the swamp to find another solid crossing. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't flooded out. And I killed a lot of deer there, and it was just so simple that it was the easiest convenient spot for them, and when I found it, I knew,
Is that water, that swampy edge, anything that you could have seen off a map? Or if you wouldn't have gone in there and put the footwork down, would you have not known it was there?
No, you could definitely pull it right off a map. You could see, you know what I'm saying? Because it is right at the edge of a long chunk of swamp. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a flooded pond area, and then it turns into a pretty decent-sized cattail marsh. But this is the only little land bridge, and it doesn't get a lot of action early season. You get a ton of does crossing through there. They're headed into the marsh and crossing long ways. But in the rut, the bucks every morning, every evening are skirting that line looking for the does coming in and out of the thick, dude. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the perfect little pinch point, and it's not much, and it's on a small chunk of private, but I killed, most of these deer behind me were shot, within 100 yards of that little pinch point,
And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deer behind them.
Yeah, those are all state land that were,
all mostly within the same area.
Yep, absolutely.
See, I believe that if you find a good spot, it's going to be a good spot until 10 more people find out it's a good spot.
And that's what happened to that spot. we were talking about this the other day, but you know what I'm saying? I had a couple people see me drag some decent deer out of there, and it went to the birds. Now there's a guy that actually said he's got a permanent stand fixed right in the middle, right on the edge of the swampy stuff, but like right in the bedding area. It's a damn island where they bed, and he. You know what I'm saying? There's a swampy part, or there's a pond like And then right on the other side of it, it's a thick island, and then it turns into cattail marsh. And the bucks would bed in there. It would be ripped. I tracked a deer back in there, and there was just rubs everywhere. And I was like, yeah, this is where they're at. This is where they're living. You know what I'm saying? And I was right tight to that edge. Then I went wandering back there. I wasn't seeing the deer or the sign like I was, 2 years ago. And I went wandering, and of course I found some guy was coming in from the other side and hung a stand right in the middle of this damn island where he had been 20 yards, set up a permanent stand, fixed stand, and probably had a bait pile back there too, whether or not he was supposed to, but, it's smack dab in the bedding area, and that spot's shot, you know what I'm saying? Like until he backs out of there and it gives time to cool down, that spot ain't going to produce no more.
Now, is there other setups around there that you could hunt around them?
There is. There's another spot down the road that's down the railroad tracks. I have to access it from another way, and it makes my life a lot more difficult to get back into it. But yeah, I'll kill in there again for sure. Within a couple 100 yards of where I did all my damage before, I'll get back in there and get on them.
Right.
But
so right now, what kind of summer scouting are you doing? I mean, what are you looking for right now? Let's say you're looking right now for a spot to go on October 1st, opening day of Michigan's bow season. What would you be looking for if you wanted to go, even if you didn't plan to go kill a giant Michigan buck? What would you be looking for in Michigan on a map for opening day just to go see some good movement?
Food. Right now you can see the acorns, you can see the apples, you know what I'm saying? You can tell which trees are going to bear fruit this year. And I'm always looking for a historical sign, man. I'm not looking for a run from this week. I'm looking for the damn rubs that have been there for 3 or 4 years, the same trees that have been rubbed up in the same areas. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to try to chase down a random deer that crossed through an area. I want, an area that they've been hitting traditionally, and you can tell.
Yeah, and Steve and I and Clint, my brother-in-law, went and scouted a spot, I don't know, March probably, April.
It was before Morels kicked up, so
yeah, so it was earlier in the year. It was
probably late March, early April.
This is a spot that I scouted last year, and we've kind of known about this area, but there's always trucks in the parking lot.
Heavy.
Like you can't drive past there without there being a truck during deer season.
If there isn't 4 trucks.
Not 10 yards behind the trucks and 20 yards to the side, the rubs as
massive.
Big as at a 6-8 inch tree.
Oh yeah.
Start right there and go right alongside the road.
And we followed them.
Yeah.
In knee-deep water.
Yep.
For a couple 100 yards.
But that's historical sign to me too, because last year I scouted this same spot and the exact same trees had been hit. Well, this year when we came back in to scout it again, they all had been hit again. So I know that everybody is walking past 10 yards from the truck.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a video of that, isn't there?
Yeah, we've got a video up on the YouTube channel of that scouting mission.
Trip, yeah.
But we found, as soon as you get there, and I mean, you can hear the cars, you can dang near see the cars going by on the road, where we're finding the most sign, just absolutely trashed trees. And they're good buck. I mean, they're good bucks doing that too. So that I agree with that. I look for historical sign a lot. And that's why I look, the earlier or right after season when the snow is just starting to melt and you can handle walking through Michigan snow when it's not 4 feet deep.
It's some of the best time to find some of that sign.
Yeah, because you can look 200 yards across these woods and see rubs starting up. But I definitely agree with you. I look for historical sign during scouting right now. It seems to me right now that I'm more focusing now my scouting on, I'm looking for ridges and I'm looking for the trails that run around these ridges going down into thick areas, transition lines. I look for ridges going into thick, basically, is what I look for the early season. Now, granted, I've never killed anything over a 2-year-old in early October. I usually do my best work late October when the sign is starting to freshen up again and these bucks are starting to wander around rubbing up trees. And I feel like I'm still not that great of an early season scouting person, but I'm still learning. Actually, I just ordered swamp country bedding, hill country bedding, marsh country bedding, and lunatic fringe from Dan Infault today.
Nice.
So I'm gonna have about
Can't go
8
wrong with
hours.
some Dan Infault information.
I actually watched half of the Big Woods YouTube one he just put out.
Yeah,
I watched half of that one today with my little girls.
I
So
can't get enough Dan Infault.
no. Dan Infold is a wealth of knowledge, and if he ever listens to this, we thank you for
absolutely.
everything you've ever
Absolutely.
put out for people, because it does
Absolutely.
help us a lot. And Dan came to Michigan 2 years ago, I think.
On the
And-
Michigan Public Land Challenge.
Yeah, and he left with a deer in the back of his truck.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
One thing too, Teddy, Michigan gets a whole lot of hate. Every podcast I hear, every write-up I see about Michigan is you don't want to waste your time. Do you agree to that? I mean, do you agree that Michigan is not? I kind of believe it's a sleeper state.
I shot a 151 last year in my backyard. I mean, a solid 151 and a half inch 13 point, in my backyard.
This buck got a story behind him too, doesn't he?
I watched him for 2 years. And I would love to have killed him on my property. I killed him in the farmer's property behind my house. But I actually watched him on opening day, November 15th of 2020, chasing the doe all day. It was pouring rain, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and I watched him chasing this doe. And
I was part of this whole day. I remember this day.
I was just baffled. Like, the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof in Michigan by far, you know what I'm saying? And, like, all I needed him to do was come across the field to me. And I knew he was there. I know the people that hunt around here. The guy that used to live in my house still has permission to hunt the 80 acres behind me. Him and his brother come out every opening day and sit on opposite corners of this field. So I'm directly across the field. The guy's kitty corner down from the deer, and his brother is back behind me. So there's only, the one way the deer can go, he's safe. And if he crosses the field, I got him. If he goes down the other end, the old landowner's got him, and his brother's got him if he goes the other way. Well, thankfully, he went into the woods, followed his doe into the woods, into the pines across the farmer's field. So I knew that, he was here, and that guy only comes out for opening day. He shot a spiky a couple hours after watching this 150 chase a doe all morning. He shot a spiky that had pencils, dude, like golf pencils, man, like 3-inch spikes, and was happy. He got his buck. He came over to my blind. Yep. They loaded up with the side-by-side. He came over and said, "I got my buck. I'll see you next year." All right, bro, have at it.
That's the excitement we need.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm like, you know what? Good for him. He's happier than the pig and shit. He got his buck. I still got that monster to chase. So I knew unless I messed it up, I was going to kill that deer. You know what I'm saying? So I just watched the weather, watched the wind, and didn't even go back into the corner where I had seen him until the weather was right. And on the 24th of November, we had a big cold front coming in. The wind was perfect, and I went out, and I was actually texting one of my buddies, and I knew I was going to kill him that day. And he's joking around, and he's texting me. He's like, "Man," and I had already filled a tag on the 16th with a buck that my daughter shot during the youth hunt and dropped with a muzzleloader, and it got back up and ran off.
Yep.
So I shot, I would have been tagged out. So my buddy's texting me, like, "Man."
So to clear that up, though, your daughter shot one on the youth hunt that you could not find.
Yeah, I got it on video. It was a big half a rack in velvet. She dropped it in its tracks with a 50 cal, shot him high right above the spine, dropped him into the beans. We celebrated because I didn't know she hit it high. Didn't reload the muzzle loader, and he got up and walked off. And he showed back up about 2 weeks later on camera, and my daughter's like, Dad, if you get a chance, we called him Limpy because he had a busted up leg. And my daughter's like, Daddy, you get a chance, you shoot Limpy, you know. And I wouldn't have shot him. He was 2.5-year-old 8-point, you know, but he only had half a rack. But I didn't plan on shooting him. But after all that had happened, I said, baby, if I get the chance, I will. Well, on the 16th, he came out chasing the doe, and, you know, I put it on him. You know, one shot with the 450, he went 20 yards and piled up. So, but my buddy is texting me. He's like, you know, shoot that 10-point. He's like, kill that big 10-point. Because the same deer we were chasing was a 10-point last year. I had pictures of him on camera. I didn't know he had split brow tines this year. And he had a little kicker. So that put him up to 13 points. Last year, he was a mainframe 10, probably 135. You know, beautiful 3.5-year-old deer last year. Or, well, it would have been 2019, you know. But, you know, my buddy's texting me. He's like, man, would you shoot that big deer? He's like, shoot that big 10-point so we can go on doe patrol. Because he had some doe tags he wanted to fill. You know what I'm saying? He's like, shoot that big one, you know. And I shit you not, about an hour later, I had a picture of it. I sent you the picture, Josh.
Yep.
Of him laying in the field. And I sent it to my buddy. I said, he's down, you know, and it was all hooting and hollering and celebrating then. My buddy came out, and my buddy was actually in the blind with me on opening day on the 15th and seen this deer chasing, you know, and I had video of him chasing. So my buddy was a big part of the story too, my buddy Justin. And so he came out, and me and him went and got the deer and got it in, and, you know, he's at the taxidermist now. But
what did you shoot that one with? You said a 450?
Yeah, 450 Bushmaster.
What bullet did you choose for that?
The Hornadies.
Okay.
250 grain. No, not the blacks, just
the regular.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah. I've had great luck with them. With that with the 450, I put it on the shoulder, man. They don't go nowhere. It's a big enough gun. You put it right on the shoulder. I shot that deer from 135 yards, and I actually had the crosshairs behind his shoulder. I'm like, nah, because I don't have access to the pines on the other side of the farm field. And he had walked out of them. So I'm like, nah,
he's the exact same farm that you hunt. He bought a house, has access to the property behind him, and then there's pines that he can't get into. That's the exact same.
You live next door to me?
Right. But yeah, so I put it right on, you know, I had it behind his shoulder, and I moved it up right onto his shoulder. He was quartering towards me and just piled them right up. And I mean, I just sat there and shook I kelped it together till, you know what I'm saying? I pulled the trigger, and then I lose it. You know, I've killed enough deer to where I can usually hold my shit together till it's done, and then I lose it. You know, and this one I just sat back, and, you know, I lost my mom last spring, and you know, she was my biggest fan, my biggest supporter, and so I sat back and thanked her, and, you know, I actually said, Ma, you see that? I got my buck. You know,
Mama was a part of that.
For sure, dude. You know, she would always be the first one that I'd call, you know, after my dad passed away when I was 19. So my mom was always my biggest fan, and I was the one in the family. My brother's a big fisherman. I'm the deer hunter, you know what I'm saying? So Mom was always rooting for me. So she definitely sent that deer right out in front of me, you know?
Absolutely. That's the same way I killed my first public land buck in 2010, and it was only a couple months after my grandpa had passed away. And it was the dumbest 10-point I've ever seen in my life, because he snorted at me, stomped at me at 65, 70 yards, and I heart shot him at 7 yards. Well, they don't do that. They don't do that unless there's a little bit of a push from above saying, just keep going.
Right.
A little further.
Go about 60 yards closer, right underneath that dude you were just stomping at.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Teddy, do you use trail cameras on public land?
I do.
What kind of things do you look for a spot to set up a trail camera in the summer? I mean, do you make mock scrapes? Do you set them on just natural travel patterns?
It's changed over the years. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays, it's more. It depends. If it's an area I know I'm going to be hunting, and I know that's a decent area, I will definitely throw a vine up and make a mock scrape, and, you know, have my kill tree picked out. If I know where I'm coming and going, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a different approach. Now, if I'm just scouting and collecting info, you know, I'm looking for pinch points, funnels, stuff like that. Hanging my cameras high. You know, when I'm chasing and, you know, looking for an area, it's different than if I got an area dialed in and I'm keeping tabs on what's coming through and when.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I definitely have had several spots on state land where I've ran cameras on scrapes, and when I got the pictures I needed and seen what I needed to, it was time to get in there. You know, just try to ease in and check them when you hunt, or, you know, make a trip just to go in to check them if you know it's about that time, you know.
Do you focus on water at all during the early season?
Not so much. Mostly food. You know what I'm saying? The first couple weeks, you got soft mass, you got apple trees, you got a lot of acorns. If you can find solid food, you know what I'm saying, especially in bigger chunks of woods. You know, if you're not in a huge ag area, you know what I'm saying? If you can find in some big woods, you can find an acorn flat or a couple isolated apple trees. I've had good luck, you know, finding some isolated apple trees back on the edge of swamps and stuff like that, where, you know what I'm saying, they produced a lot of action. I probably didn't kill as much as I should have out of them areas, but it was I definitely would have been able to.
See, and that's kind of where I am with trail cameras right now, trying for pictures right now. Pictures of big velvet. After that, then I start moving around trying to figure out, you know, I'll use my pictures and say, once you get that picture, you know which direction it was traveling from and towards. Generally, if it comes from from behind your camera in the morning and it's going into the woods somewhere,
right, you know which way he's going.
You know which way he's headed, probably to bed that day. And that's where I start pinpointing, and I might only move a camera 100 yards just to find out. I want to get them as close to daylight as possible in the evening and going back to bed in the morning. But I want to get them. I feel like you want to get a picture early or later in the morning of a buck, especially now because they're going back to bed later. But in early season, when the deer pressure or the hunting pressure starts, if you can get one even close to daylight in the morning, you're probably going to be close to where they're holding up for the day.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about your favorite hunt? You got a favorite hunt on public land that you could tell us about how that went down, how you picked the spot, and just, you know, tell us a rundown of that one hunt. Doesn't matter if it's your biggest, if it's your smallest, the memorable hunt that you've had run and gun hunting public land.
This 7-point right here.
Yep.
Was a good one. 2018, I think I shot. It was the year I bought my property here. And
didn't we kill bucks on the same day? Or
I think
the day or two apart?
I think so. That was the 7th I killed that one on, I think. Okay. We've had a couple years where we've killed, right? We usually, our vacations are usually around the same time in the November. Yep. And so we're always either I'm out or you're out or we're out together. You know what I'm saying? Talking.
Yep.
But that buck, I actually had just gotten access to all the property behind my house. And I had, you know, my property here that I had, you know, I've been putting food plots in, and I've done a ton of habitat work on my 10 acres since I got it. And, but I knew there were some good deer over there, and I had seen some good sign. I wasn't running cameras over there because I wasn't over there as much, and I didn't have cell cameras yet. So I literally left my house to drive a half hour. I was on vacation. I left my house and drove a half hour south to go down and hunt this chunk of state land. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, this is the best. We had a huge cold front. Barometric pressure was high. Like, this is going to be one of them mornings, you know. And I chose to go hunt this state land because, you know, I had seen some good sign back in there about a week earlier. I went and checked some things out. I knew I was going to be on vacation, and I actually took my climber and locked it to the base of this tree. And so I left my house, and I'm thinking the whole ride, like, I'm crazy to go hunt state land. I got 140 acres of private land right here in my backyard, you know, where I know I got good deer on camera. I got some good ones on video, you know. And I went and sat and on my way out, I had a drag. I put some doe pee on it and, drug a scent trail out to my spot, got up in my stand, and right at daylight, I heard a branch breaking, 30, 40 yards behind me, and this deer was right there. I went to stand up, and I get my bow and turn around, and by this time, this deer is 12 yards from me, looks up at me, and, he's got me busted. I'm like, what do I do? I can't draw nothing. So he turns around to walk away. I just froze. He turns around to walk away, step behind a tree, and I drew as he stepped behind the tree and shot, and I spined him, dropped him in his tracks. So I grabbed another arrow, knocked another arrow, put one right behind his shoulder, and it was just an amazing hunt. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything in my mind told me not to go hunt there, but I knew I needed to go hunt there. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole ride, I'm like,
feeling.
Yeah, but the whole ride, and I actually was texting my same buddy Justin, you know what I'm saying? And he texted me that morning. He's like, "You're gonna kill one this morning, man. The conditions are right." He's like, "You're gonna see a good deer, And right after daybreak, and I actually ended up having to call another buddy to help me get it out of there because it was quite a ways back up in there. And it just all the pieces came together. It was one of them hunts where I shouldn't have been there, but something told me I needed to be.
Yeah, and those are the best ones when they work out too. I last year, that 12 point, I had posted on our Facebook page, I hate these nights. It was so quiet and so dead calm that there was no way that no deer within 250 yards of you were going to just lay there and listen to you walk in because it was so loud. I said, dude, this ain't even worth it. Like, how are we going to sneak in here and kill a deer? And I killed the biggest buck of my life.
Well, it's my big 9 point I killed him on November 3rd, 2015, and it was 75 degrees in the evening.
Yeah.
I was hunting out of a ladder stand, a 2-person ladder stand that I'd had up for a few years that I've never even seen a deer out of before. And I just had a feeling to hunt that stand that night. And I'm in a t-shirt, mostly because I didn't want to go shopping with my wife at the night. I'm like, I'm going hunting. I got to be out there. And here he come following 2 does, and he came to a grunt call. I grunted at him, and he turned around, and he spun in. I heart shot him, and he was dead in 25 yards.
See, it's just go with your gut feeling always.
It was like all of your normal conditions that you would predict were wrong for that day. It was so hot. Given it was early November, which they moved, but it was hot and it was early. I probably shot him at like 5 o'clock.
We seem to be catching a couple of them because I remember my lease ended, I think, in 2017. And that year, I had gotten permission on a 70-acre piece to hunt. And I took a week's vacation, I think the first week of November, and it was 85 degrees.
Yeah.
We were getting videos and pictures on trail camera all night long of deer. In one,
I remember that.
The target buck that we had, you could see the video, my climber and him grunting like a pig chasing the doe around it all night long.
Well, it's nice and cool.
Think I ever saw that sucker?
As soon as the sun comes up, he's down somewhere.
He was gone. But then last year was the same way. Last year, early November,
it was warm.
It was 70 degrees.
Yeah.
That fucking Halloween in a t-shirt this past year. It was warm.
See, and I killed mine the night before, and I was wearing Shiver Shield.
Yeah.
But Teddy, we've kept you here almost an hour. For 2021, what do you got planned? What are your goals? You got any hunts planned? What are your expectations for this year?
Iowa. I got an Iowa tag in my pocket, brother.
Iowa public or Iowa private?
It's just an archery tag.
Okay.
So I can hunt either. I got really lucky. A couple of my buddies, one of my buddies knows a guy, his uncle lives in Missouri or Kansas, one of the two, and he knows some farmers in Iowa, and he hooked us up with these farmers, and we went about a month and a half ago and did some scouting, and it's a different world out there. There's just giant deer, and we ended up meeting a bunch of really cool farmers and got access to a bunch of property. So 4 of us applied as a group. Me and 3 of my good buddies. So there's no doubt in my mind that we should all have a chance at some giants. Like from the trail camera pictures we're getting and pictures from the landowners and stuff, it's going to be a ball.
When are you planning on going?
We're going to get back down there here next month and do some more scouting and hang a few sets. And then we're kind of going to go by the cameras. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, we want to be down there the first week in November. But if we're getting daylight pictures and they open October 1st as well. So, I mean, if we're getting legit daylight pictures in October 1st, then we're going to be down there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, we got kind of free access to hunt the whole season down there from these guys. So, we're gonna play it by ear, but we'll definitely probably be down there for the first week in November if we're not already tagged out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of be dumb, I think, to not go during the rut.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, unless there's something that tells me I need to be down there before then, because if I'm gonna, I've been doing this long enough to know I'm gonna do what the deer tell me, not what I want them to do. I'm gonna do what the fucking deer tell me, because I spent a lot of time hunting where I thought the deer would be instead of where the deer were. You know what I'm saying? Like, this spot looks good, but
Right.
So,
Nope, and I agree to that. I'm running trail cams right now on public, but I know I'm going to have to relocate them come actual season and when the pressure's on and everything.
And they move.
I've got one right now that is 20 yards off of a public road, and right across the street is private, but every pull I've had out of there has had a buck in it right now.
yeah.
But I don't expect that to continue once the pressure starts.
Right.
So I know that, we're going to probably have to keep moving trail cameras around and everything. You're only got, man, what's the drive to Iowa for you?
It's about 11 hours, I think.
So that's not a spot that you can just go run down there all willy-nilly after work one.
It's going to take some planning, you know what I'm saying? So, and the guys I'm going with, my one buddy, he hunts all over. He's hunting Tennessee. He's hunting 5 states this year. He's hunting Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Iowa.
Okay.
I don't know how he's going to pull it all off, but he's going to try. So
I'm curious why he'd add Tennessee. Is Tennessee a state that I don't know about?
Yeah. It's up and coming for sure. There's some big deer in parts of Tennessee.
Small bodies though, right? Or am I wrong?
No, just like Kentucky deer, man.
Kentucky deer, huge.
That big non-typical got shot. That world record non-typical got shot out of Tennessee a couple years back. It was a giant. That
Gotcha.
34 pointer or something. I don't know. It was gnarly, but that was out of Tennessee a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
But
I think one day I think I'm gonna start. When I start out of state, it'll be either Kentucky or Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio definitely has got some nice deer. I hunted there in 2015 and shot a decent 10 point. By Michigan standards, the Ohio people were like, "Why'd you shoot that little guy? Like, that's the biggest deer I've ever seen, dude. What do you mean?" But I definitely want to get back down to Ohio. I want to start looking at some public land down there because I am totally convinced if you can kill in Michigan, man, you can go kill anywhere. And I kill consistently, and I'm confident that I can go. I'm going to go to Iowa and knock the shit out of a monster this year. And if I get to Ohio again, I'm going to do the same. When I hunted Ohio in 2015, we had a kind of an outfitter. He basically had land and a lease and a cabin and a couple stands set up, but we could freelance wherever we wanted. And I hunted the first couple days at his spot and was like, "No, I don't like this. You need to show me some more property." So he took me to another chunk of his property they had access to. They didn't have any stands. I walked it, hung my climber, killed the next morning.
Perfect.
See, even on private land, I think run and gun. If I would have moved a lot more when I had my lease, I probably could have had chances at bigger deer. But once I hunted that for 5 years, it's like my stands are where they are. I killed deer.
You do it,
just whatever.
Like clockwork.
But it wasn't always. Now that I've kind of graduated and come up by myself, not from peer pressure. I grew up it was probably 5 years ago that I shot my last 1.5-year-old buck, but I did that on my own, and it's like I probably could have killed some bigger deer on private land had I have been a little more willing to move. But it's like, what, when you're on 38 acres and you got 16 tree stands, because every tree, I had 8 sets on that 38 acres. Every one was a double set. I wasn't moving any of them. I'm just gonna go pick a tree. I'll probably see deer that day. But I saw one big one and shot it, and a guy a mile up the road shot it 2 days later. But that was the first morning on that private land in a different setup.
I remember that was when me and you first started talking, bro.
Yeah.
We were on. You posted on one of the Facebook pages, and we started messaging.
God,
and
he was big too.
That was when me and you really started talking.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've, you know what I'm saying? We're every year during hunting season, we're messaging back and forth constantly,
That's what I love about. That's the one thing I think I love about Facebook, is it'll connect you with like-minded people.
Right.
Otherwise,
Absolutely.
Facebook.
That's part about it.
Yeah.
Everything else is just kind of garbage.
Yeah, kind of. This will probably get fact-checked if we put it on there. But.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Teddy, we thank you very much for your time tonight. I'm not going to keep you any longer. I'm actually going to get up in about 6.5 hours to go fishing with the boy tomorrow morning. So we're going to end this one tonight. But, Teddy, I appreciate you being with us. Is there anything you got to add, Teddy or Steve?
I don't think so. I think we covered some really great things tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I said a whole lot. I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm always down to talk some deer.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Teddy, and we appreciate you always following with us. And yeah, I appreciate being able to message you and say, dude, I just missed a big one. What the hell?
The funny thing is, man, you're like the second person I sent that picture of my buck to. I sent it to my buddy that I was texting, and then I sent it to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I love that, I know if I could send you a map and be like, hey, bro, where would you hit this? What do you think about this? You know what I'm saying? And we attack things a lot the same way. And, it's just nice to have someone to talk to, like-minded, like you said,
Like-minded people, man, they make good friends.
Absolutely.
Teddy, I appreciate it. And everybody that has listened to this one, we appreciate you listening. If you don't mind, go give us a rating, review, give us a like on this podcast. It helps us get seen around the board. Instagram.
Come find us on Facebook, our new YouTube channel.
Yeah, we got a new YouTube channel that we kind of had a foobar. had to delete the old one and start a new one, basically. But yeah, we appreciate everybody that's always been here with us. And Teddy, we definitely appreciate you being on here with us today, and send us those pictures, because I know you're getting excited for Iowa, and I want to see the bucks that you're going to chase after.
Absolutely. Good luck in Iowa.
For sure. Keep putting out good content. I'll keep sharing it, fellas.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Teddy.